So here I have two PSDs. One is the one that the artist provided, which is the one we're on now. And then I have one that's called Rig Ready. And as you can see, some of the things look a little bit weird. It's just like, what is that doing there? Why is this hair looking like this? So this is how I received it, and this is how you'll see it. And this is an older PSD, so the organization may not be the most ideal, but it's good enough. It's also a lot better than some people, so some people don't even label their layers, so please at least layer your layers and name your layers, people. Okay, so we have the head, and we have the hair, and the hair shadow on the torso. All this makes sense. And for the torso, we have the collar, the inner body, the boobs, the belt, upper body. Okay, so that's a piece underneath. And then the skirt, just broken up into all these different parts. And the leg, which is broken up into these parts. And also includes the shoes, left and right. And then there are these tassels. And the arms. Side hair. Back hair, which is the back so you can't see it. Tail. So this all is based off the logic of an artist or a Photoshop document or something like that. It's like if you want something on top, you have to have it on top in the hierarchy in the layer window. All makes sense. So here is what it looks like from a rigger's perspective, or at least my perspective as a rigger. So first, for the head, I put everything into three main sections: the head, the upper body, the lower body. And if it was something that had a lot of accessories and stuff like that, like a sword or a gun, you know who I mean, then I would have a section just for accessories, or if there's special poses and stuff like that, I would have them in their own section. But for the base, I have the head. I have my guide for happy and angry. And I have the bangs here. I have all the hair stuff here, including the hair shadows, even though it's on the torso. And also, I like to make note if there's something that needs to be clipped or something that needs a special effect, then I like to make note of that, because especially if you're not the artist, you may not remember once you're moving from the PSD to the to Live2D, since Live2D doesn't like record if something's multiplied or whatnot. So it's helpful to label that. And okay, so we have the face. And as a reminder that folders can only go 5 deep. So one thing I was thinking about doing is like, okay, so the first layer, I'm gonna change the color to red. All the second layers are gonna be orange. And then as you go in, oops, yellow. And so this is a way that you could keep track of how many layers deep, since you can't go deeper than 5 when you're importing to Live2D, because when you're Live2D just won't recognize the inner folders, like the folders above 5. And at least Clip Studio will give you a warning if you have too many. Like, actually, that's not right. Okay, folder within a folder that's yeah, so I did folder within a folder within a folder. So this is definitely more than a 5. If I press file, save, save this one. No, example. say this layer folder contains which there is a layer folder contained which is 5 deeper than there is a layer folder contained which is deeper than 5 layers, 5 levels. This file may be impossible to import in Photoshop or other applications. Do you want to proceed? So generally, like for example, Photoshop, it's fine. Maybe for older Photoshops that's not the case, but every time you try and save, you'll get this warning, so you'll know that, oh, okay, this is a little too deep. But and you can use any colors you want, obviously, but I was thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the innermost ones can only go up to blue. Anything deeper will be an issue. I think that they'll just be they just won't be contained in their folders. But on the off chance that they just delete the layers or something, it'd be better to not have the issue to begin with. So I'm gonna go back. And let's see, what about bangs? So I separated these bangs into the left to right, and then like this would be the center, and in Live2D I actually have it as the center. One second, let me just open that up. So what was I showing? Bangs. Okay, yeah. So I have the center here, which are for all the center pieces here. And then it's basically, I just thought of them as like chunks. And so you don't necessarily mind this because it's a little messy at the moment, especially if the deformers are not in place. But the point being that I have the bangs in one, the bangs over here, the center, side, 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 and then the tail. And so moving on to the face. So with the eyes, especially if they're symmetrical, as long as they're where they're supposed to be, like let's say you're using the symmetrical tool and you draw something, you're like, okay, this is ending up on the same place. You can do all the drawing that you need. But I actually just merge any duplicates because I know I'm going to reflect it anyway. So and if I decide not to reflect it, but I know it's symmetrical, I can just duplicate the layer anyway. And so this makes it a little bit easier, not only cleaner here, it makes it easier for me. So if they're multiple, like ears, this is fine. But like for example, eyes, sometimes I like to have a folder that says eyes and then it says eye left, eye right, assuming it doesn't go too deep. And then for the lips, so because the inner mouth, because I have I'll probably call this mouth. Let's call this mouth. Because the mouth contains more things. Okay. Okay, so usually mouth is okay, open the mouth, and you have the inner mouth, and you have all this stuff because there's all under the same category of area. And that's why this shows up. Like that's why it's on top and it's looking kind of creepy because it's on top of the layers of her face, like the base layer here. And it's just because I put things together. And so some things, like for example in Live2D, I'm going to create a deformer that puts these two blushes in like the same quote-unquote folder. And then yeah, side hair, side hair. And then so like the upper body, we have the neck, we have the chest, and the chest includes both the bra and the boobs. And the arms, I'm including all of these details. So the sleeves, the bracelets, all that stuff, they all have their own section. And that's why they're laid on top of each other, because I know, since I know what it'll look like before this, assuming it's not too different. If it's like obvious, like for example, if I see this, then there's a note or something that tells me like, okay, this goes around the arm, or it's kind of common sense or something, then I can just leave it. But because I know what this is supposed to look like, this isn't an issue because I can change it later in the program. So let's look at one of the arms. So specifically this wrist bracelet. So the back is supposed to be not up here, but in Live2D I can go to the draw order, which is the 500, and make it lower, and voila, there you go. It's done. And so that's what I would do for other things too. And that's what I did with like this arm, for example. I moved this back to 300 because it goes from like 0 to 1,000, 1,000 being the upmost. And so, yeah, I basically will link things by location, pretty much. So, you know, I have the legs on the lower body, that's where I have the skirt and the legs and everything. So that's just how I personally like to work. And also a little bit more of an advanced thing for other people is like I added, the original artist just had it split like this as you would normally expect, but because I wanted more 3D-ness, I basically copied and pasted and made the other side too. So then if she turns her foot, you'll see more of it as it's curving, so it'll actually look more 3D, like it's actually wrapping around her leg. Otherwise it would just, you'd have to either pull it and it would get all squished and stuff, or you know, it just wouldn't look the most ideal. So, yep, that is pretty much it. And I hope that was helpful.